Well, everyone, welcome to the July 3rd Women in Product Toastmasters Club meeting. Super excited to have you all here today for you to be spending your holiday weekend together. The meeting is recording, and I'm going to introduce you to our president. Our president is Rosie's not here today. So
Yeah,
Marguerite, our new VPE, is gonna kick us off. Marguerite.
yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters. I will be kicking off in Rosie's absence. Our president is off, taking this holiday weekend off. And I'm the new VP of Education. This is my first meeting officially in that role. Thank you. So I'll start with, there is a club announcement. Our club has achieved President's Distinguished status. And that means, so the Distinguished Club program is Toastmasters' way of recognizing and rewarding clubs that consistently maintain a high standard of service to members and community. And the Distinguished, the President's Distinguished Club is the highest award that a club can earn. And it's earned because our members have completed project levels and the leadership team has met important deadlines. So thank you to the leadership team who just rolled off. And also we should all give ourselves a pat on the back for progressing through levels and making this happen for our club. So applause for everyone. Cool. Thank you for sharing that on your screen, Erica. Next, it doesn't look like we have any guests today. Just double checking. All right, so we shall move on to today. I will be introducing the theme of today's meeting as well, which is your product management story. I just wanted to highlight a couple of obvious things, but important things about today's theme. First, that it's so valuable for everyone to share and hear the stories of other product managers, especially other female product managers. This is how we learn from each other, and through learning, we benefit all of our careers benefit. I've learned a lot from listening to club member stories over the past year, including everything from how to develop a relationship with a mentor, how to set goals for APIs, down to managing up. And most importantly, I've learned that this is not easy for anyone. Everyone faces challenges in this product management role. I'm not the only one who sometimes struggles. And it's nice to hear and nice to hear how other people have worked through challenges in this role. Second, I think hearing each other's stories shows us what's possible. It's possible to, if you're an aspiring product manager, it's possible to transition from operations, customer success, engineering into product management. And if you're in product management already, it's possible to recover from failed projects and disappointments. We've heard a lot of stories about those situations as well, and it's really been inspiring. So I'm very excited to hear and learn from everyone's product management stories today. So next, I'll go over the structure of the meeting, and obviously the agenda's in the invite, and I think we'll share it. Share it in the chat as well in a minute. So first we'll have prepared speeches, and Sina and Kashmir will be presenting speeches today. In the second section of the meeting, we'll have table topics as usual, where we can practice impromptu speaking. And I think, because we're a small group, I think just about everyone should expect to be called on today. But if you really don't want to, please let Erica know. And Erica will be leading that table topics round. And of course, the third and final section of the meeting is our evaluation round, which will be led by Lori, our general evaluator, who will be supported by Tiffany as a speech evaluator. Lori will also be a speech evaluator. Tiffany will also be our grammarian, and Monique will be our timer. We'll keep track of how long our prepared speeches are running and table topics are running, making sure they fit within the prescribed timeframes. And before we start our speeches for today, I'd like to ask our grammarian, Tiffany, to come to the stage and explain your role and share the word of the day.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. And fellow Toastmasters, as grammarian, it's my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listening carefully to our language usage. I'll take note of any improper language, as well as any outstanding words, quotes, sayings, or thoughts. As grammarian, it is also my duty to introduce the word of the day. For today's meeting, the word will be imperturbable, which means being marked by extreme calmness, impassivity, and steadiness. An example of using this word is, in the face of relentless questioning from her stakeholders, this product manager was absolutely imperturbable and supported her team's decisions with data, deep customer focus, and intuition. Each speaker is encouraged to use the word of the day. I will give the Grammarian Report when called upon during the meeting and also report on usage of the word of the day. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tiffany. And now we can jump into our prepared speeches. So first up will be Sina. Sina is serving as the VP of membership for our club. She's also a product lead at ADP, an HCM company providing all services from hire to retire. Sina is working with her team to create an enterprise-wide SaaS product for application-level security. And the title of her speech, which is a standard speech, so she's running from 5 to 7 minutes, is My Product Management Story. Sina, please take the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Madam Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and no honored guest. So for today, I was going to share a story with you all, a story of a small family, a family of 4, dad and a mom and 2 kids, a brother and a sister. This is a story of a middle-class family where the father is in a banking industry. He's a manager of one of the branches. Mom is a housewife. She takes care of the kids and the family. And they are living like any one of us. This is an incident, what happens in one of the summer evenings where the family is having dinner around the dining room table and the light goes off. Everybody is in dark and the father jumps up and becomes a handyman. He goes and switches off the bulb and goes near the bulb and takes it out. The daughter is inspired and she goes near to the father and asks, what happened? So the father scoots down, shows her this bulb with the filament twinkling up and down. He shows her how the bulb is dead now, like it's not going to work anymore. So he asks her to go get another bulb. So she rushes into the room. She has seen the package before, brings the bulb very softly and hands it over to the dad. The dad tells her to do it herself. He shows her how to screw the bulb inside the socket and go up till it's tight. She gets excited, she does it, and she goes and switches on the bulb. And there's light in the room. She's having a grin on her face and she's very excited. This is a story of me as a daughter, and that's my handyman dad. We both used to find things to do around the house, electrical stuff, changing fuse, putting bulbs on, putting tube lights around, figuring things out, sometimes destroying it, sometimes fixing it. We also ended up doing some small plumbing stuff. We were sometimes mechanics for our 2-wheelers. It's a lot of fun. I also remember a December month where I was seeing these wreaths that were done for Christmas. I had seen them across movies, on Christmas cards. So I take it to my dad and I wanted him to buy one. And he says, let's build one. So we start thinking and figuring out how to do it. So we go and get this long iron rod. We start turning it around and making a circle. We put green tape on it. And then we find some craftsy material to go around it and make a plush green wreath for our door. We find small bells, small stars to put on it. And that's our not too fancy, but quite cute wreath. We also ended up with this DIY project, a small artificial Christmas tree, which was part of our highlight for that Christmas. That's one of my favorite memories. All this eventually led me to engineering. I finished my bachelor's degree, ended up as a software engineer like any other Indian. And then I got into coding. I was not interested in coding. I was more interested in why people were asking for that solution. What was the problem behind it? What were we trying to solve? I continued with my coding and entered into the data warehouse world, where I was more interested in the metrics that we were trying to figure out. Why is business looking for these metrics? What are we trying to target? How to predict future? Eventually, my company started adopting Agile framework, and I became the product owner. Life moved on, continued with road mapping, continued with deliveries, release after release. Eventually, I started working more with the business partners more closely, with sales, with call center folks, finding what problems we were trying to solve. And there was one statement one of my peers gave me: "You are a good product manager." And I was trying to figure out what is product manager. I had heard about product owner. I had heard about Scrum teams. Product management was very new. This is when I started the journey of product management. I started learning about what product management was, how different industries were trying to adopt it, what did it mean, the difference between product owner, product manager, various things. I surrounded myself with people who are other product managers, especially in this group. I started figuring out how to grow in product manager. What is there outside this? All this was interesting and exciting to me. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do eventually, what industries I was wanting to be. So this is some things that led me to product management. I know there's a lot of us who have similar backgrounds, but my product management story started with my dad, with that bulb, with that fuse, with that small problem statement where I fell in love with problem solving and figuring out small, innovative, simple solutions on fixing issues along with my team. Right now, I'm a product lead at ADP. We are developing an enterprise-wide SaaS platform for our product development teams to be ahead of their security lifecycle. How can they look out for security issues along with their development lifecycle? So I'm very excited about it. It's a very new field, but as any other product management manager knows, that you have to learn the domain, the skills applies the same. So I'm very interested to know your product journeys. And if anybody in this team knows more about security, would love to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sina. That's awesome. And we'll put 2.5 minutes on the clock for questions for Sina. Anyone has any?
Hi, Sina. Curious to know if you're still interested in doing do-it-yourself projects around the house nowadays.
For sure, for sure. So I actually have a friend of mine who has a wood workshop. So what I do on my off weekends is I find these Pinterest small things that you can build with wood. So he has a lot of scrap wood that we figure out. So that's one of my DIYs. I find small things like I did a tabletop and things like that. So still continuing with that. Yes. Thank you.
I can ask a question too. Sina, as you've progressed in your product management career, what things that you learned as a child applies now that you've been in product management for a while?
A couple of things I'm realizing now, it's not to make it too complicated. Keep it simple. Try to articulate what the problem is. Like, what are we trying to solve here? Because I feel like we end up into this noise of solution, but product management, I feel like it's more articulating and keeping us on track on the problem, what the consumers are trying to find, and keeping it simple. The other thing is, it's not just me that has to figure out the solution. right now at ADP, I have a very, very smart team. So all I have to do is just bring the problem and let them figure it out. We all can figure it out together. And that excites my team also because they can find better solutions than I can by myself. So yeah.
I have a question for you, Sina. Do you think you can ever, would you ever be able to go back to engineering or data work? You're done.
So thank you for that question. Engineering, I don't think so. I am so outdated now. There's so many technologies that have come across, and I don't feel the interest to keep up with it too, like all these day in, day out technologies. Data I have kept in track. Like data, I feel like I like to learn on the trends, the outcomes that we are trying to remember. So those tools, those technologies I have kept in touch and I use mostly, like not the official tools, maybe Excel or, but the data I still like to do, yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you, Sina. Thank you again, Sina, and thank you for all the questions. Next up, we have Kashmira, who will be giving her icebreaker speech, which should be between 4 and 6 minutes. Kashmira is a veteran of the engineering field, 25 years, and a green grasshopper in the PM field, only 2 months. So looking at this new world with wide-eyed wonder. She's currently Principal Product Manager for Platform Engineering at Shutterfly. Her core values are creativity, connection, and empathy. And she tries to apply these as much as she can in everything she does. And go the extra mile by creating one-of-a-kind jewelry, volunteering, and moonlighting as a life coach. And another fun fact, she can hold a plank for a solid 2 minutes while singing songs that she made up about how much she hates planks. Yeah, that's very impressive. The title of her speech is "What Have I Gotten Myself Into?" Kashmira, please take the stage.
My product management journey. This theme is absolutely perfect for my icebreaker. You see, I have just crossed the threshold into a brand new career as a product manager. I'm so new that 4 months ago, I didn't even know that I wanted to be a PM. In fact, it was such a whirlwind journey that sitting down to write this speech is actually when I took stock of the situation. And the one prominent thought was, oh dear, what have I gotten myself into? And the mental oh dear is, of course, with more colorful words. Madam Toastmaster, my fellow Toastmasters, and all those folks who might watch this on YouTube, my name is Kashmira Patel, and this is the story of how, oh dear, what have I gotten myself into? I was born in India, the youngest of 4 siblings. I have this theory that parents think that their first child is a complete miracle. The second one is also a huge blessing. The third one maybe gets a photograph clicked when they're born and then the novelty wears off. By the 4th one, they are completely over it. This face showed up on a Polaroid only 2 years after 2 years of existence, and that too among 10 other faces. So the whole point of this is to say that I basically grew up flying under the radar. The only expectation from me was that I don't fail a grade and there should be any complaints from my teachers. That was easy. I was too lazy to get into trouble and the studies seemed to be doable, so I just sailed along. Moving along to what I wanted to do after high school. So my dad was an engineer, so very predictably, my lazy brain decided, let's just do that. In college as well, I was just flying under the radar, staying out of trouble and just passing, well, actually this time with good grades, but nobody noticed because I was under the radar. Now, the thing about flying under the radar is that while you're not allowed to massively fail because that gets attention, you are also not expected to massively succeed because that will also gain attention. So you can basically experiment all you want without fear of failure or anxiety of success because you're not even thinking about it, right? You just do what you want to do out of sheer curiosity. And I can quite truthfully say that I do not have a very huge imposter syndrome because I had figured out how to happily cruise along in life. I had no fear of getting caught as a fraud, or there was no pressure to excel. Kind of imperturbable, because no one was really noticing that I existed. Oh no, don't feel bad for me. It was actually the perfect life, believe me. You could do just whatever you wanted. The other good thing about this is that you get amazing opportunities to observe others. I knew exactly who was doing what they liked, what they disliked, what triggered them most, and what motivated them, who to go for help, and who to stay clear of. And when I would notice someone in need, I would go help. I would suggest solutions to get them out of their situation, set them up with resources or whatever was needed. And even when not in need, if I would see an opportunity for making something better, I would offer up the idea or help make that change. So I would say that that is where my core product management skills started to develop. Because at the end of the day, it's all about figuring out and relieving pain points, right? So anyway, life was good. I graduated from college, came to the US, got my master's degree in computer science, as all other Indians do, got a good job and did relatively well in life, all still under the radar. After 25 plus years of being in the field, I was now a principal cloud engineer. This may not be a huge achievement because my peers were directors and VPs and whatnot, but I was content. I was still staying under the radar and happy with my life. On the side, I did have some creative pursuits like custom handmade jewelry. I had the knack to really know my customer and make something suit their very specific personalities. I also had some other social pursuits since helping people make their lives better is what really floats my boat. So to that effect, I volunteer with an organization that works with survivors of domestic violence, and I'm also a pro bono life coach. So all this was again on the side, under the radar. Something changed about 4 months ago. My under the radar comfort zone had started to feel a little itchy and kind of scratchy. I was not sure what I wanted, but I wanted something different. And this is where things began to get surreal. End of February, the last week of February, a fellow volunteer posted on LinkedIn about their new PM job. No idea why it caught my attention, but I got interested. I spoke to friends and colleagues who had moved from engineering to product. Every single person I spoke to had one thing to say: you have a natural flair for it, so just do it. I started to believe them as well, because I mean, they're doing this day in and day out. They know what they're talking about, so why not give it a shot? But here's the catch. I have been in the trenches of infrastructure and platform engineering for the longest time. We are not consumer-facing teams, and we do not have PMs. I had not worked with a PM in such a long time, I didn't actually know what PMs did. So I started watching YouTube videos and LinkedIn learning sessions and blogs, and joined interview Slack channels, and joined Women in Product on Facebook and this Toastmasters group. I was basically in the information gathering phase. And exactly a week after I decided I wanted to be a PM, without even knowing what it is, of course, a position for a technical PM for platforms opened up in my organization. My mentor, who for the last 6 years was the hiring manager, so I immediately reached out to him and expressed interest. And long story short, in less than 4 weeks, yes, in less than 4 weeks after I decided I wanted to be a PM without even knowing what a PM did, I was verbally approved as the principal product manager for, wait for it, for 5 platform products. And wait for it again, I was the only PM in that org. I did not have any fixed processes that I could follow or a team that would guide me through it. So the official transition of course, took longer. The paperwork is in fact still going on, but here I am, literally catapulted from under the radar, just smack in the middle of it, dealing with 5 teams and some pretty important stakeholders in the company. Yeah. So I have many moments of, oh darn, what have I gotten myself into during any single day? But these moments are always short-lived. My under the radar life has kind of given me that quiet confidence that I need to own the space that I have landed on and to make the most of it. My empathetic nature and the power of connecting well with people has also already created a lot of goodwill with all the 5 engineering teams that I work with. I have a solid record of 10 years within the company, and upper management knows that I will deliver no matter what. And finally, my company thrives on a culture of shared ownership, not just ownership, but shared ownership. I know that they will not let me fail. My success is synonymous with the success of the entire org. We're all in it together. So at this point, I'm ready to fly, and this time above the radar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kashmira. I was, yeah, really entertaining, but also a fascinating story about that really quick transition to PM and all the challenges I'm sure you have to do confront while jumping in that quickly. I'll start. So we'll have 2.5 minutes of questions or so. I had a question, which is for you, which is how have you gone about sort of, figuring out how to be a PM like outside of work? So like what sort of help have you sought out, tools or resources?
So outside of work, I kind of also realized that platform engineering, what my team does, is not mainstream. So whatever resources I could find was more consumer facing. So I looked into all kinds of, I researched and I just Googled for what is platform engineering? What do all these platforms really need? And what is product thinking for platforms? So that's one resource that I have really looked for. I have joined Slack channels for platform engineering I have joined Mind the Product. My company also has sponsored me to join Reforge. So I will be part of the summer cohort that's starting in 2 weeks from now. I have reached out to PMs. I think then I forget if it was within the Women in Product group Slack channel, but I've been reaching out basically to other PMs outside who are doing internal PM work, and they've been gracious and generous enough to spare time and just talk me through what they're doing in their work. I have gone to meetups. One was by Lenny's newsletter group. So I'm really reaching out to see what's going on in the world, trying to bring it in, and also talking to PMs within the consumer facing PMs within Shutterfly, to see what processes are in place, what tools are already available within the company. So I'm really reaching out to the universe and beyond, even if I may say that, to like, hey, I'm doing this, who can help me and who wants to join me? Like a lot of other internal PMs are like, hey, I have this. And because I've been engineering so long, and also because we did not have a PM, as leads of the engineering teams, we did a lot of the PM work ourselves without knowing that this is what it was. It was just not formalized. So a lot of intuitive work where people are asking questions and I'm answering them, and they're like, oh yeah, that's makes sense. So sorry, I took up all the question time with the one.
Oh,
but I hope
yeah,
that makes
no
sense.
worries. Thank you for sharing that. I think we have time for another question. If anyone has one for you.
I have a question. Since you are still in the heat of your transition, what has been your biggest challenge so far? The thing that's been the most difficult as you've tried to move into this role?
My biggest challenge, I think, is that it's just a really personal one, that I have always been part of a team. Every day I wake up and there is something that I go and talk to all these people who are kind of my teammates, and then we know each other and we work towards something together. And now I am the only PM. There had been days when I didn't have a single meeting and I'm just sitting by this window of mine at home because I'm still working from home, and not feeling like I was part of something bigger. So that went for that day that I realized that I work with 5 teams. If I can even schedule one meeting a day with every one of them, or one individual team, at least I will keep that connection. So I think connection is a really big deal for me. So that was a big challenge. Yeah, and I think if one
go
other
ahead.
challenge was that, and like I think I already mentioned that before, that everything, all the resources are more geared towards consumer facing products. So this is more internal. So that was another thing to kind of even figure out, how do I apply all those principles to something internal?
Thank you, Kashmir. Thank you, Sina, as well. It was really fascinating to hear about how your family backgrounds and led you onto your career path. You kind of have a little similarity there. Yeah. So thank you. And next we'll have our table topics round, which will be led by Erica. Erica is the product manager at Smart Girls, the owner of Erica Tamburo Art, co-founder of this Toastmasters Club, and is currently serving as our club sergeant at arms. And thank you, Erica, for taking on this role at very short notice. Could you take the stage and tell us about table topics?
Hi, sure. Thank you so much, Marguerite. Okay, I'll ask a question related to our theme today, and everybody has 2 to 3 minutes to answer the questions. And I hope you all have fun today. Would you mind please sharing our word of the day real quick before we get started?
Tiffany, do you want to share it again?
Perturbable. Thank you very much, Tiffany. Okay, our first question of the day is, when we think about stories, there's always a beginning. Can you tell us about your beginning and when your interest in product management was sparked? I would like to invite Svetlana up here to answer that question.
Hello, thank you, Erica, for that question. So my beginning was while I was doing very different work at an international human rights nonprofit. I used to work for a foundation that was one of the larger foundations. And within that, I worked in a department called the Justice Initiative, where we did human rights work and took what we refer to as impact or strategic litigation cases across the world. I was basically the gatekeeper of all of our filings. So to all the international tribunals, all the every case that we took, I was the case manager and worked across our teams and all the local civil society organizations and legal teams that we worked with, because that was how our litigation work sort of came together. It was between our, the lawyers that we worked with and the local teams to exhaust those national remedies. And in that role, I ended up building some open source case management software to basically support these lawyers in their collaboration across documents. I mean, the legal world is all about documents. That's everything happens in writing. That's how cases get litigated, basically, until and only if they get heard in proceedings. Most of the work happens in writing, and this was before all the remote collaboration tools sort of took on a life of their own. This was early on when, especially for sensitive legal work, things like the Google Suite were not fully embraced. And so between considerations of security. I heard somebody speaking about security earlier, and overall support for those workflows that I knew very, very well from that job and from working for a law firm before. They had a lot of very specific requirements. And so building a tool for that, which was basically like rethinking Microsoft and what Google was already offering, but for the specific use cases of our lawyers and the lawyers on the ground, was a really fascinating project. And it was during that work that somebody brought up product management that I was unfamiliar with at the time, because I had been in this completely different world for so many years. But I had been working with consultants and engineers directly, sort of as the go-between the lawyers and our users and the engineer who was helping us develop the system. And so I would say that one of the first things I did was read a book that was recommended to me. And it was the book that like changed my whole professional life, because it explained, the evolution of like waterfall thinking to the agile revolution, right? And so that was for me like an experience that I had lived through, right? And seen sort of how organizations used to build software and what was out there in the world. And so from there, I just knew that I had to pursue a product in formats and in organizations that were following those methodologies. And so I'm always in pursuit now as I go to find institutions and organizations that do this in the best way. So I know I took a long time, but it was a long process. So that was my journey. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Svetlana. If you don't mind sharing that book, I'm sure everybody would be interested. Okay. The next question is, where were you in your career journey before your interest in product management was sparked? What non-product management experience have you had that has helped shape where you are today? And I would like to invite Amelia up to answer that question.
Thank you so much, Erica. The non-product experiences that I've had that have influenced my product management journey, one that comes to mind that's a bit interesting is I was a teacher's assistant for a Girls Who Code summer program for a summer, and it was a really interesting experience to guide a group of, I want to say about 20 high school students and teach them about some fundamental computer science concepts over a summer and really just get them motivated about learning more about technology. I think of that as an interesting journey and experience that influenced my product journey that I would take later on, because it taught me a lot of valuable lessons on time management, on people management. I think especially being in a room filled with young people, children, teenagers can always be a really great learning experience on how to manage emotions and manage other people's expectations when it comes to different projects. And I think it's always interesting to put yourself in those kinds of situations and see how they might be able to be helpful in different professional contexts as well. And I think it taught me a lot about patience. It taught me a lot about being able to convince stakeholders to see the way that you do. And so I would say that that was a pretty influential and interesting experience for me in terms of my overall product journey as well, that I ended up taking a few years later. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think it's interesting to look back and say, oh yeah, this is where I learned these valuable lessons. not always where you think. Okay, next question is, now each story has a juicy middle. This is where we learn the most. For a good story and a good journey, exploration is extremely important. We try new things, see how we do, see if we liked it. Maybe there's something we'd like to change. What is one area that you explored that was super scary, and how did it turn out? And I would like to invite Lori up to answer the question.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. That is a fantastic question. So I think the juiciest part of my career, if you will, or where I took the biggest leap of faith, was moving on from my first product management job. So I had been with that company for 5 years. It is the place where I made my initial transition. I worked my way up to working on like their flagship product. So things were like pretty good. But the culture of the company itself was getting to me, and it was just burning me out. Like I got to the point where I didn't want to go to work anymore because I was just over dealing with some of the people. So that meant time to look for a new job. And for me, it was so difficult to trust myself that I could actually do this job somewhere else, because it was that moment of kind of faith of like, well, can I actually do product management, or can I just do product management at this company that I'm at now? So after many, many months of interviewing, I got another job. And when I jumped into that job, I loved my team. And that was the moment where it was like, oh, there are good people to work for out there. And there was a learning curve for sure when I started onboarding to that company. But what I realized is that the fundamentals are the same, but every company does it a little bit differently. And it's okay to learn how that company does it. And now that I've been at 2 companies and I'm on my 3rd one now, you can actually apply what you've done in all of those companies and how they did it to what you're doing now. And you kind of start to develop your own style. But that initial jump from like, can I actually do this job other places, or can I only do it with the people that taught me, was very challenging, but I'm glad that I took that leap because now I'm where I'm at now.
Thank you for sharing that, Lori. I know a lot of us are scared of transitions, right? Oh no, what's going to happen next? So there's some positive words for anybody that's thinking of their next big move. All right. My next question is, failures are just as important as successes, and sharing a failure is super powerful. What is one area that you explored and it turned out that you didn't like it, or it didn't fit well with you? What did you learn from that experience? I am going to invite Sina up to answer that question.
I was thinking not to be called. Thank you for that question. I'm still thinking on what was the failure. So the question is, what was one failure that I learned from, right? Can you?
Yes. What is one area that you explored and it turned out you didn't like it, or it didn't fit well with you? What did you learn from that experience?
I don't know any of those, because here's like, for product management, the more you get yourself into different situations, the more you learn from it. Like it's different perspectives from different people. Like for example, this is not a professional experience, but something we did as part of my church was a fundraising event, like a picnic, where I actually applied product management thought. Like we had a booth for Indian dishes. So started with exploring what people would like to eat, how to price it, along with the other stalls that are out there, how to attract people from the marketing side. Should I go Facebook? Should we do just brochures in the church? So I feel like the more you do, it gives different aspects of product management. So I don't know how to really. But I would love to listen from somebody else. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sina. Today's next question is, our stories are all ones of achievement. One of the most important things that we need to do is celebrate those achievements. For some of us, we get so focused on the future that the present and past can quickly be forgotten. What can we celebrate with you today? What is your proudest achievement in your career to date? And I'm going to ask Tiffany to answer that question.
Thank you for the question, Erica. This is a very timely question because I am one of those people who are always very future oriented and not great at celebrating my past wins. I would say that my proudest achievement to date would be leading my newly formed product management team for the past 6 or 7 months after I had pitched myself to my executive leadership team in my startup to step into this role of essentially founding product manager from project manager. And some of the reasons I'm very proud of this achievement is that while learning the fundamentals of product management, I've also learned that work in general, I don't think it's limited to being a product manager, has really, in a way, forced me to reconcile a lot of the past, typically more traumatic experiences and unlearning some of the behaviors or tendencies that I just automatically default to, and working through those, not just by myself, but also with my team, and realizing that we're all really just only human and we're all doing our best. And it's totally okay and totally normal to not be perfect, because by the definition, as human beings, we literally can't be perfect. So stepping into this role and becoming a leader by not officially, but unofficially, has really forced me to mature and increase my emotional intelligence, I'd say exponentially compared to where I was, especially in university. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. What a wonderful growing experience you're having. So happy for you. Okay, let's see. Our next question is a fun follow-up question regarding celebrating. Can you share with us what you celebrate and how you celebrate it? If this is something you tend to overlook, what kind of celebrating would you like to do in the future? And I'd like to invite Monique up to answer that question.
All right, let me try and do double duty. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. The question is a fun follow-up question regarding celebrating. Can you share with us what you celebrate and how you celebrate it? If this is something you tend to overlook, what kind of celebrating would you like to do in the future?
All right, thank you for the question. So celebrating, I guess what I try to celebrate with my team, just like working in product management, it's really important. I think I know once you release something, that's not the end. You got to see how customers respond to it. But I think it is important to just acknowledge the work that's done to get there, because I'm not sure how you all feel with your teams, but it feels like a lot of things that we work on, they're not quick. They take time. They take months. A lot of scope changes and ups and downs with it. So just celebrating the work and teamwork that goes into it, I think that's something that I really try to focus on with my team. And then down the line, just making sure that once we start getting feedback from customers, that we look and share with our engineering team, our design team, and say, like, this is what worked. This is where we can iterate and improve on it. But I think that is what I try to do, is make sure we celebrate every time we reach an important milestone. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you so much, Monique. All right, our next question is, our stories are far from over. We've talked about our beginnings and our middles. And for today's purposes, we'll talk about where we are today as an end, pseudo end. Tell us where you are today in your journey and one thing that you think is most important for have gotten you there. And I would like to invite Marguerite to answer.
Thank you, Erica. So the question is where I am today in my PM journey, and what was the second piece?
And one thing that you think is most important for have gotten you there.
Most important for there. So today, I'm pretty deep into my product management career. I've been in it or had the title for over 10 years. And but I should say that I am always exploring. Maybe I get bored easily once I switch from corporate product management to startups, like beginning stage startups, and now I'm exploring larger startups. And actually, currently, I'm working in an innovation lab, where it's a startup within a big company, which is Nike. So I'm always probably thinking too much about the future in terms of thinking about what's next. I think I want to go back to a more traditional startup experience versus being in a startup within a large corporation, because I miss sort of the speed and then the need for speed, I guess you would say, that drives the work. Where Nike is a really large established company, and even in the innovation lab, there's things just take longer because there's processes and lots of people to work with that you have to partner with. And I think, but I think I feel fairly confident in making that, in figuring out my next step and getting back into more traditional startups. It seems funny to say, call startups traditional, because sort of at some point in my career, I realized I needed to reach out to other people, like joining this group. The Women in Product Toastmasters Club has really helped me address my imposter syndrome that I experienced just by being in a community with other product managers, especially product managers that are similar to me, like you guys. So thank you for that question.
Thank you so much for that answer, Marguerite. It's nice to learn more about your experience. Okay, and our final question for today. Another end we can consider is where you'll be in 1 year, the infamous question. So much can happen in just 1 year, and as Toastmasters, we're all setting up goals for our next year of Toastmastering. What goal are you currently working toward or about to start? Kashmira.
So I have actually this is the first time in my life where I actually had to set goals for myself, because it's such a new space. And my manager has been helping me with that. And it's more on the work side. Within a year, I want to create a brand for the platform engineering team. Like right now, folks in the company know that we exist, but they're not entirely sure how we help them and where what we do is so helpful in running the business. So that's my 1 year goal, that it should be a well-known brand. Like if somebody looks at says platform engineer, they should know at least the very basics. And so that's my one goal for on the work side. And on the personal front, I have been doing performative yoga, where I do it just like, oh, can my body do this? Can my body do that? Let's see if how flexible I am. But I want to get into the more deeper aspects of it. So where I get more benefits, basically. So those are 2 goals for this year. Thank you.
How fun. I'd love to learn more about that, Kashmira. All right, thank you everybody for participating in Table Topics. I am going to hand it back to Marguerite to get us into the next phase of the meeting.
Thank you, Erica, for all those thoughtful questions, and everyone who shared their story through the questions. It was really interesting, and I'm probably going to listen back to on this Table Topics round. So we'll move on to the evaluation round, which will be led by Lori, who is the founder of this Toastmasters Club and is currently Assistant Director of Product Management at Niche. Lori, please take the stage.
Thank you, Marguerite. So I do have a team of people today, but I am also on that team of people. So I think I'm going to start with myself. It's been a while since I've been the general evaluator, but I think I go first to evaluate Sina. So I will call myself up to the stage and Sina as well. I can't see Sina, but there we go. There she is. So first off, Sina, excellent job in your speech today. I know that you are working specifically on hand gestures, and you mentioned to me that you didn't have much time to prepare, but I can say that that didn't come across at all in your speech today. So you did a wonderful job. I love the story that you told. It was very relatable. I personally was the same kind of kid with my dad, and still do that today. In fact, now I do it with like my husband, and he probably regrets like me growing up that way, but your story was really relatable. And I felt like I was with your family at the dining room in your entering statement, right? I could tell exactly what it felt like when the light went off and you all wanted to change it and, get things back together. So you did a great job telling your story, but also using vivid language to really bring it to life. And also your hand gestures when you're talking about like changing the light bulb and taking it down and it just added to the story and brought us in even closer so we could feel like we were there with you. You also made a couple of jokes during your presentation or during your speech today, which just kind of, again, drew us back in. It made me laugh, and just like, I felt like I knew I was talking to you, right? Like, it's like, oh yeah, that's Sina. So I was able to get to know you even more, and that's because your speech was authentic. So I could tell that you are authentically telling your story and bringing it to life in the way that Sina does. A couple of areas of improvement is, one is your speed. So I think we all maybe do this, talk really fast when we get nervous. Your story was so good that I think it could have benefited from just a few more pauses. So when you started giving us your story about how you moved into product management and what type of product, that's where it got more complicated. So a couple of pauses added on to there really could have helped us as listeners like digest all the things you told us, because we're all learning it. And then the last thing I would say is like your hand gestures were great, but I would challenge you next time to, I don't know how to describe this, like use them in those effective moments, like changing the light bulb, and then restrict them afterwards, which is super hard to do. But I feel like you're ready for that next level of challenge. And it'll just make your speech that much more impactful for us all. Other than that, again, kudos, great job on your speech. I know you're still early on in your Toastmasters days with us, but I can already see your confidence growing and your speech is continuing to improve. So great job.
Thank you.
And I'll turn it back over to the general evaluator, which happens to be me again. So next up, we have our second evaluator, Tiffany. So I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany so she can evaluate our second speaker, which was Kashmira.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lori. Kashmira, for an icebreaker speech, I was, just to put it out there, I was blown away by the story you told. I felt like I've gotten to know you already so much better in this one speech. So kudos to you for that. You're such a strong storyteller. Your tone was very friendly, approachable, and very conversational. There were a couple of instances where you made me chuckle, which was always amazing. Always love a bit of humor sprinkled in here and there. You did an amazing job maintaining eye contact with the audience, and that really just went to show how comfortable you were with your material. It really drew me into your story all the more. I loved your use of vocal variety for emphasis and also for distinguishing and contrasting between higher and lower points in your journey. You did, sorry. The motif that you introduced of being under the radar near the beginning of your speech, contrasted by reusing this motif, albeit switching it up on its feet with being over the radar at the end of your speech, was so powerful. I really, really loved that dichotomy. I've a couple things for you to work on to really challenge yourself. Overall, I found the pacing to be just ever so slightly on the fast side, as I really wanted to take in everything about your adventures today. My evaluation on this point might be slightly biased, as I was also evaluating your speech. I recognize that 6 minutes isn't a lot of time for anyone to share what are usually very interesting and winding, twisting journeys into product management. And a very small minor comment for your gestures where your hands were positioned lower, closer to your lap. Raise your hands ever slightly up, just so that we can really see them in the camera. And to really challenge yourself on the content and structure of your speech, the major inflection point in your speech where you said, I'm slightly paraphrasing over here, 4 months ago something changed, could have used a bit more buildup, in my opinion, as I personally found the transition a bit abrupt or slightly unexpected. But overall, again, you're such an amazing storyteller. You exude so much confidence, and I'm so excited to hear you speak more in the club. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Great evaluation, Tiffany. So as a reminder, everyone, please vote for your favorite table topic speech today. Send those votes over to Amelia. She'll be announcing them in just a moment. But before we get to who won, let's turn it over to Monique to give her timers report.
All right, let me get myself together with the last one. Okay, so starting with our speeches today, which were super entertaining and wonderful introductions to, or learning more about both of our speakers. So Sina, you came in within time at 5 minutes and 27 seconds. Kashmira, you, as Tiffany said, like 6 minutes is not enough time to show our life story. So you came in at 7 minutes and 52 seconds. When we got into table topics, Svetlana, you were at 4 minutes and 21 seconds. Amelia, you were in time at 1:56. Lori, you were just over at 2 minutes and 8 seconds. Sina, just under a minute, 57 seconds. Tiffany, you were just a little bit over at 2:03. Myself, which maybe there's a little give and take there since I was timing myself, I was at 1:25. Marguerite, you're just a little bit over at 2 minutes and 14 seconds. Kashmira, you were within time at 1 minute, 14 seconds. Now moving on to the evaluation round. Lori, your evaluation was at 2 minutes and 43 seconds. And Tiffany, yours was 2 minutes and 52, so both were within time. Thank you so much. Now back to you, Laurie.
Thank you, Monique. Great job timing and doing double duty. That is hard to do. Next, we didn't have an all counter today, but that's all right. I'm sure we all felt it. I know I said so, I don't know, at least a half dozen times probably talking to Sina, because that's my favorite filler word. So I'm going to, oh, I just did it again. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany to give us her grammarian report.
Thank you, Lori. Shout out to Kashmira for using our word of the day once. Congratulations, nice work.
Thank you.
On the standout quotes, thoughts, and words, just want to reiterate some of the things that really resonated with me today. Tina, I really loved how you set up the context of your speech. I honestly felt like I was watching a movie in my head about your childhood. So that was really wonderful imagery. Thank you for sharing that with us. Kashmira, in your speech, some sayings that really stood out to me. Being in the trenches, product development, honestly feels like sometimes you're in a war sometimes, so that really resonated with me. When you said quiet confidence, that really just immediately reminded me of Susan Cain's book, Quiet. Being an introvert myself, that really resonated with me. And like I said in your evaluation, that rhetorical element of using motif and contrast when you said under the radar and then above the radar really stuck with me as well. Erica, I really loved how you set up table topics with the narrative arc of beginning, middle, and end. That was a great way to frame the larger meta conversation. So thank you for that. And I know imposter syndrome came up a couple of times. I think it's a great reminder that it's something that a lot of us experience, which is totally okay and totally normal. And last but not least, Marguerite really liked that interjection of need for speed. Always love it when we use those fun play on words. So thank you for that. And that is my grammarian report for today. Thanks, everyone.
Great job, Tiffany. All right, with that, I will do the general evaluation of today's meeting as well. So for today, it was a challenging meeting because it's a holiday, and as you can tell, there's only a few of us. So all of us doubled up on roles, or most of us did at one point in time. So kudos to everyone for jumping in and doing that. I will also say, or repeat what I told Marguerite earlier today, is that she was as irritable as a cucumber during the most chaotic meeting I think I've seen scheduled in the last year, at least, maybe longer than that. So great job, Marguerite, putting all the pieces together with as much adversity as you definitely went through all the way up until we started this morning. So good job. Great first meeting as the VPE. Also, Erica, this was your first time as SSA. Fantastic job highlighting people, doing all the Zoomy things that looks easy when you're watching the meeting, but is incredibly difficult when you're the one actually pushing all the buttons and trying to keep people on the screen at the right time. So good job doing that. We also started the meeting on time, so great job watching the clock, getting us kicked off and underway. As you can tell, we made great time today because we did have a little bit or a few parts that were missing, but that's all right. It's a holiday weekend. This was still a fun meeting. I loved the topic. I loved hearing everyone's stories. I enjoyed that everyone got to participate at some point today, which is the whole point while we're here. And I would say the only thing I wrote down for an improvement is improvement for myself. And that's making sure that the calendar is updated the day before the meeting, at least, and actually give Marguerite permissions to do that herself now that she's the VPE. So as you saw, I added the agenda very early this morning. And we'll get that squared away as we continue to transition leadership roles. So as we continue to transition leadership roles, maybe give each other a little grace as we're getting up to speed in our new positions and learning what each other does and handing things off. But other than that, this was a fun meeting. I'm glad I joined this morning and I learned a lot of new things as always. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Marguerite. Oh, actually, yeah, Marguerite, you do the vote counter, right?
I believe so, yes. Yes,
Okay,
thank you. Thank you, Lori. for that thorough evaluation. And yeah, I agree. It was fun. Yeah, getting to hear everyone tell their stories today. So that's the benefit, I think, of a small meeting. So yeah, next up we have Amelia will present. She's our vote counter, represent the winner of the table topics round.
All right. Thanks, everyone. It was great to hear everyone's amazing table topic speeches today. The winner for our table topics round today, drum roll please, is Lori. Congratulations, Lori.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, congratulations, Lori. And so I will sort of wrap up the meeting, I suppose, with a few like the regular announcements, which is for our speakers, please remember to complete the next step on your pathway, complete your lessons. If you haven't signed up for a pathway, I'm not sure if anyone on this call hasn't, but if you haven't, please, please do. And then obviously for the upcoming meetings, we need folks to sign up for meeting roles. You can see the meeting roles. I'll put the links in the chat, but let's see the meeting roles, this coming link. And you can sign up for meeting roles. This next link, it's coming in this form. So please sign up for meeting roles for like upcoming meetings. If you've been looking ahead at the topics, I did change the topic for the next meeting. It was hiring PMs. I think that's a great topic, and I think we'll need to do a little planning to sort of gather all of our hiring managers on the same meeting. So I switched the topic over to ethical product management for the next meeting. We are looking for speakers for that one for the next meeting. So please sign up especially if you have if that's a topic that you care about. And if there are any questions, I think you can stay after this meeting wraps up to answer them. But otherwise, I think we're wrapped up for today. So I'll return control of the meeting over to our Sergeant at Arms.
Thank you, Marguerite, for leading an excellent meeting, and for everybody else for sharing all your stories. It was a super fun day today. I am going to end recording, and if anybody has any questions and wants to stick around, I'll be here.